right, guys, good morning. I can actually say that we're early enough here on Pacific time right now. It's a little after 8 a.m. Thanks for hanging in there. We are starting a little bit late, but we have an amazing guest. So everybody that's tuning in, I already see Cybersecurity Central. I'm actually surprised that you beat James in there. He's probably tied up at work or something. Always here. Anyway, we're going to jump into this. If you're new here, just let you know, you have come to the right place. You are at Outpost Gray YouTube in collaboration with Grant Thornton Public Sector. And I am your host, Jack Scott. And what I do is I provide information in cybersecurity, innovation, and technology. And I do it every Thursday, but we are a little off sync because I am live on location at RSAC 2022. We are actually sitting here inside of like a hotel room area. There's a water cooler like right behind me over here. So we are making this work. But without further ado, we need to bring our guest on the show. So we've got Courtney Cohen sitting right over here, who I'm going to let her introduce herself. She's the Senior Director with CyberGRX. So we're going to dive into what she does there, her role there, what CyberGRX does. And we're going to do that right now. So let's get her on here. All right, she didn't know that there was going to be a transition. She just got portaled in just now. InfoSec Live, good seeing you. Thanks for hopping in. Courtney, so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's early. Yeah.
It's a little early.
Are you a morning person?
Absolutely not.
Oh my gosh. You're like the earliest interview I've had all week.
It's an honor.
And you're not a morning person. So it's an honor that
I like to push the limits in all the ways. So it's good.
Love that. Okay, so let's dive into this and share a little bit about what do you do? You're the Senior Director with CyberGRX, but what does that mean?
So I handle our product team, obviously taking all sorts of ideas, inspiration, feedback, needs from our users, from our internal stakeholders, from our teams, from other SMEs that we get a chance to work with. We get input from so many different sources, from so many smart people. And it's my job to basically synthesize all that feedback into how it's going to manifest into our product, into our solution, and how we optimize that solution for our users as a result. And just making sure that we keep the innovation and the creativity going so that our users are continually on pace to find new ways to solve their problems, because nobody's got time to do it the old way. We got to find new, better ways to do it, and we got to be smarter about it along the way.
100%. So when you're talking about the product, because you are working on the actual product with CyberGRX, and you bring products to market, what does CyberGRX provide to the client?
So CyberGRX, in a nutshell, really is a third-party risk management partner. And what that looks like for us is we provide a variety of services to help our users better understand who their vendors even are, curate that list, prioritize them, figure out what their next best plan of action is. And then the way we enable that is we have a web app-based platform that you can go in, organize your portfolio, find data about your third parties, and then we've built a very robust analytics off of that data to provide actionable insights. And that's really what it comes down for us. We want to make sure that all of our data that we are providing, all the insights that we are delivering are actionable. This isn't just data collection for the sake of data collection. We are really trying to generate a formidable change in this space so that our users are safer, so that the whole landscape is a little bit less risky, and that we're keeping pace with those threat actors that are, as you know, ever adapting and being more creative every single day. So we need to keep up with that and, if possible, get ahead of it. And the only way that we can do that is if we think beyond the current limitations of our tools today and think about how do we get around some of the challenges that we see today and beat them at their own job and keep everybody safe along the way.
Very much the cat and mouse game. And I'd like to take a step back for any of the viewers that may be wondering why third-party risk, why is that such a big deal? And it is like we're seeing it in the federal space with different legislation coming out to really focus on our defense industrial base and securing our critical infrastructure, focusing really heavily, not just on the data that's flowing through, but those third parties. So why is it so critical that you're focusing in on these third parties and their impacts to the organization?
I think the latest stat I heard was about 67% of all breach events occur through a third party. Wow. It is a huge vulnerability point for companies, for users. And we need to make sure that we're not only aware of those vulnerabilities, but we know what the implication of working with a company that has vulnerabilities, that is introducing you to those risks, are going to come with, and what you can do about it. Being aware is one thing. But being proactive about it is incredibly helpful, because by the time you find out there's something there, it's too late. And we've seen this how many times over the past few years, and it's just getting more and more prevalent. And like I said, these actors are figuring out where they can exploit certain gaps, and that's a huge conduit to your own company. So just because your walls are up, if someone else has the keys to the castle, it doesn't really matter how high those walls are.
Absolutely. So the vector that we've seen being leveraged for majority of breaches is typically phishing attempts, phishing attempts, and then from that, you've got credential stuffing and reuse of admin credentials, but it's almost always a phishing, which is a human error. Are you seeing that within third party? So we have our organization is secure. We've got our third party that provides us toilet paper, and somebody within admin clicks on a phishing email, their environment is now impacted by malware. Are you telling me that once that happens, that possibly impacts your organization?
Absolutely. And the best thing that you can do is, one, identify that as quickly as possible, understand what the implications of that phishing scam result in, and then quickly identify what control gaps that need to be remediated so that you can close that floodgate as soon as possible and minimize the damage of that access. So in addition to having some of this upfront data about your vendors, if something like that were to happen, we can very quickly give you visibility into, this is what happened, here's who's implicated, here's what data was incurred in that attack, and here's what we recommend you do about it as a result to try to do damage control as quickly as possible.
What are the top things that you've seen with these organizations? Because, well, actually, I'm going to take a step back and talk about like the historical legacy approach that we've seen with cybersecurity risk management, and then moving into third-party risk management. What are some of the top things that you see that organizations are doing wrong in this space?
I think the thing that frustrates me the most is that we kind of have this checkbox mindset. If you do this thing, you complete this list of tasks and you're safe. You're done until maybe next year or 3 years or whatever your determined cadence of acceptability is. And that's not enough, because like we said, these threat actors are staying dynamic. They're not saying, oh, I tried it this year, I'll come back next year and we'll try again. They're constantly generating new ways to get into your system, and we need to stay on top of that. So for me, the worst exercise of legacy tactics is doing this snapshot in time visibility into what your risks are. We really want these vendor profiles about their risk posture to be living, breathing, evolving artifacts, dynamic pieces of evidence and data for you to continually be updated so that you can make real-time decisions about real-time problems, not decisions about information that is 6 months old, because already that's antiquated by the time we're looking at it today's stage.
100%. And that's where I see a lot of issues from organizations. And do you think that the organizations are still using legacy mindset because maybe they don't know, or is it fear? Like, what is causing them not to be forward thinking and leaning into this?
I think for a lot of the people that I work with, they're small teams that are already overstretched, and they're saying, this is what is being asked of me, and I'm going to do what is asked of me and move on to the next thing, because my backlog of tasks to complete is just too big to kind of think about what else could I be doing. And we want to try to flip the script and say, I know those are the requirements, but there's so much more that you could be doing in addition, and we're going to make it really, really easy. And one way that we've done that is, rather than wait on your third party to give you that information, we want to leapfrog over that dependency on your third party. We wanted to circumvent the time variable that comes with questionnaire-based data collection. And we generated we called it predictive risk intelligence. So we developed an algorithmic model using the questionnaire data we have collected over the past 7 years in the market. And we can now predict what any vendor in your portfolio's risks are going to be before they engage with us in the slightest. And that has really allowed us to shift the conversation, shift the focus away from the data collection to the actual data interpretation and understanding, and turning it into an actionable insight, like I said.
Wow. Do you have any use cases that you could provide around this? This would be amazing.
Yeah, I think one of the most prevalent use cases that I run into is, we have security teams that are getting a lot of pressure from their internal stakeholders to vet a new vendor, to say, can I proceed? I need a contract with this person. And probably sometimes they're not even being asked. They're basically being told, get the information that you need to allow us to proceed forward with this relationship. And as a security professional, you're getting pressure from both your internal stakeholders and just from the integrity of your job to say, I'm not going to make a bad decision for my company just because I'm under a time crunch. crunch. And so what our predictive data has allowed people to do is at least get enough visibility into the risk posture of the vendor that they're evaluating to know whether or not this is going to be viable from the start before you put that 3, 6, 9-month investment into getting an assessment from them. So now you're making your business relationship manager happy, you're keeping your company safe, and you're feeling a little bit better armed about the conversation you're about to have with your third party, because you're not starting in the dark. You're not starting with a blank page on this vendor. You can show up, look at our predictive data, see what gaps we are predicting are going to be the highest risk for you, and have that conversation with the vendor. Say, at the very least, give me some comfort about these 5 gaps that CyberGRX is telling me I should be worried about. And then maybe we'll go ahead and finish the rest of the assessment. But get those critical controls addressed up front and make sure you have a more productive collaboration that isn't just going through the motions for the sake of going through the motions.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of organizations definitely check the box, they go through the motions. We see it on the federal space. That's where I primarily work. With CyberGRX. Do you all work in the commercial sector or the public sector mostly?
We're working in both. We do have a much heavier presence in the commercial sector. I think there's just a higher need. I think there's just a lot of I think there's a speed component there for sure. No offense to the federal sector. I think they're a little bit used to being a more monolithic, slow-moving
things move very slow
entity. And on the commercial side, especially as people are contracting more and more vendors to do so many more niche services, if you're suddenly using dozens of vendors to just get through your basic business process, you cannot wait on every single one of those. So these people are kind of maybe jumping over best practices or recommended steps because the speed component could be deadly to a commercial company. So I think that's where we're feeling our biggest friction point, and we're trying to meet that need at the largest volume.
I want to take a little bit of a pivot because I find your background really unique. I don't understand some of the things that you do, especially like bringing to market, like understanding, because that in itself is a feat, is bringing a concept or a software to the market. So can you explain like high level what that means, what that overall process does that you do?
Yeah, there's a couple of different facets to it, right? Yeah. So everybody in this space, I think, has the same objective, but I think we're working with different ways to go about it. We're working with different maturity levels. So the first thing for me that's most important is meeting our users, meeting our customers where they are to make sure that any message that I'm delivering, any solution I'm proposing resonates with them. Because if they're on step 1 of building their program and I'm talking at a PhD level, which I can't do, but if I were, we're gonna just talk past each other, and they're not really going to register what it is I have to offer them, and we might miss an opportunity then to work in a deeper collaboration. So for me, it's really understanding your users, your different segmentation of your user base, and meeting them where they are. And I think we have some really, 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 really smart people at CyberGRX, and it's been my privilege to kind of take the really smart things that they say and put an interpretation layer on that makes it frankly more accessible to anybody that might be watching this podcast or seeing us on the internet, and they can understand this is what we can do for you, and this is why you should care. And at least once we get our foot into that door and we get their attention, we kind of pique their interest, and then we can go into all the weeds about how and why and the cool machinations behind our data set and how it's so different from anything else that I'm aware of on the market.
So when I hear of bringing to market, I think of all of the new technologies that are coming out, and we're seeing emerging technology, disruptive technology, one and the same. And I don't think that a lot of these organizations are taking the considerations that CyberGRX is taking into consideration. It's really trying to be first to the market. I'm curious, how is it impacting what CyberGRX is wanting to do within the cybersecurity risk management and third-party risk? How is that impacting your work when you know that every day there's a new IoT device coming out, there's a new technology coming out that is going to start impacting your customers and their environment? Yeah,
I think for me, we've developed some really good partnerships in the space. Some rally cry that we've been propagating for the past few years is providing a 360-degree view of risk. We have a specialty at CyberGRX. We specialize in inside-out data about your vendors, but we know there are dozens and dozens of other solutions that are taking different angles. Why are we doing this alone? We have partnered with external scanning tools. We partnered with threat intelligence data feeds. We partnered with all sorts of other sources of information that only make our solution stronger. And I hope in turn we have provided some benefit to them as well, because we are all after the same objective. And frankly, it's a objective that helps everybody.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't we work on this together? So yes, there's others out there that are doing things faster, but I think if we can communicate and collaborate and maybe put the competitiveness aside to a degree, there's a greater good that can come out of that. And I don't want to lose the sum of the whole because every piece of the part thinks that they need to be more important and that they're keeping things close to the chest. I think there's a much greater end goal that can be achieved if we work together in better collaboration, and we've been seeing that.
Yeah, collaboration is a big area. We definitely in this industry have the competition. We need a healthy competition though, and quit siloing, better communication.
Exactly.
So we're coming to the end, but before we wrap up, I'd love to have like final thoughts for what can an organization do right now? Maybe 1 to 2 tips or tricks that they can do right now to better secure their environment related to the third-party risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, know who you're working with. I cannot tell you how many customers come to us and just have no idea who their vendors would even be, and then who their cyber relevant vendors are. So just have some awareness, some general awareness about who you're working with and what capacity and what dangers that might pose, even on the most basic level. That'll at least give you some context to understand what kind of risk landscape you're operating in. And then secondly, I think you hit on it with the phishing example. Provide some training for your company. There's so much human error involved in how these attacks occur. The best thing that you can do is just educate your company, educate your employees, and give yourself that first line of defense in the most simple way possible. And it's going to give you huge inroads and protection, I promise.
Wealth of knowledge over here. Courtney, what is the best way for our viewers or anybody that's going to be watching this on the recording and not live? How can they reach you?
Definitely find me on LinkedIn. I love having conversations on LinkedIn. You can check out CyberGRX and all of our solutions at cybergrx.com. Definitely some good contact information available there, and we can continue this conversation for as long as you like.
I love it. And you guys can't see, but we're both in black pants
Great
and white.
choices.
Yeah, white shoes, black pants, and white
uniform
shirt.
this morning.
And we did not plan this. I just realized that while you were talking, I was like, wow,
We got great taste.
We do. We have awesome taste. All right, guys, thanks again for showing up. You all are the best. I'm going to be going live here again with Ron Warner. He is like the person to know in the cybersecurity industry. We are literally going live in like the next 30 minutes. So hopefully I'll see you guys back here shortly. Courtney, you're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.